Okay, so I guess first of all then, thank you for joining the Clever Quality webinar. I just want to share my screen just so we can kind of run through a few things. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, I can.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, right. Let's just put this on. Okay, you can see that, yep.
Yes.
Okay, so what I really want to cover today is just how our Clever Quality app can effectively revolutionise businesses within Business Central. And really just kind of put through a bit of a demonstration using Business Central as to what kind of things it can actually do, what it's capable of, and what the core features are within it, really. So I'm going to just quickly run through this agenda. So initially, I'll just be going through the main purpose and features of what's in the actual app itself. Then I will go through Business Central and put together, I guess, just a few of the kind of main ways that I believe that people would probably be looking to use Clever Quality, and obviously how they benefit businesses. Then I'll just run through a quick section just in terms of how customizable is it, and then we'll do questions towards the end. So if I could just say, it may just be easier to run through questions right at the end of the session. So if you do have any burning ones that you're thinking of as we go through, maybe just jot them down into the Teams call, and then I'll run through them at the end. So first and foremost, our Clever Quality app focuses around what I kind of class as 4 pillars. Now, just in case it isn't something that you are aware of, we are aware that Microsoft are effectively bringing a quality kind of module into Business Central towards the end of the year. I believe it's December. I don't think that's going to be part of the base app, but they will have some quality control processes and abilities that will be available. And I do believe that that is going to be on a quite basic level at the moment. So more just things like inbound quality checks against items, I believe. So it's actually quite interesting to note that that's coming out, because our Clever Quality app includes that as the basic principle, but equally we do also have quite a lot of other things in there that do really expand the whole quality control process. So for example, we can do quality control orders and checks against things like equipment as well. So potentially things like metal detection checks kind of periodically, tool checks, so knife checks or anything like that that business are looking to use. So we can do all of those. We also have a non-conformance section as part of Clever Quality, which is really great for businesses to use, well, hand in hand with quality, but also just across Business Central in general. And that's really good for actually recording issues that have occurred, but also how we can actually prevent those issues from reoccurring. So it helps business processes in terms of efficiencies, potentially even cost saving concepts as well. We also have vendor compliance, which I believe Microsoft doesn't include anything similar to. So if you have businesses that are purchasing goods from vendors that require certifications or accreditations, we have the means to store those certificates in Business Central, but also actually do preventative action. So prevent purchase orders from being released where these certificates don't exist or have actually expired. So just another really kind of nice extra feature in there. And then just shelf life regulations. So a really easy way to track sales and purchase shelf life requirements in one place and actually ensure that the products that we're receiving and shipping out meet the criteria that we require. But I guess the most important thing for the whole app is just this concept of constant traceability and visibility of the data, because there's no point in putting the data in if we can't actually use that to improve business processes. So I'm going to come off this. I'm going to run through just a few examples in Business Central. And then, as I say, if you kind of see anything that you want to have any questions about, please just put them in the Teams chat. So what I want to run through first is just a couple of places where we can actually get Business Central to create quality orders automatically. Now, if you can see my Business Central there, you'll notice immediately that we have a quality tester role center. So anyone that is responsible for doing or the management of any kind of quality processes can obviously access this. You've got a lot more visibility on your role center about things that you need to action and do. And it just means that everything's a lot easier to find as well. So one of the places that we can have quality orders generated automatically and therefore do checks on is receipts, obviously bringing in goods, which I imagine is quite a popular one. So I just have a quick example here of a purchase order with a couple of items on. I'm just going to release this and I've got warehouse receipts switched on, so I'll process a warehouse receipt. Now, you may notice here this section for quality order pending. So what this means is that we can actually have quality orders switched on for warehouse receipts as well, which are going to be kind of non-item related ones. So things like vehicle checks or driver checks or certification checks, for example. So we can have them switched on, which actually really means that we need to post those results before we can even commit the items into Business Central and post the receipt of those. So it's a nice way of just doing an immediate check before you're actually receiving goods. You'll notice that I don't have that one switched on at the moment. So in this instance, I'm just going to receive in my goods. Now, the majority of the tests that we do have in Clever Quality do require you to be using lot numbers or serial numbers, because ultimately when we're doing the checks and posting results against the items, we want that to be connected to something. So obviously the lot numbers and serial numbers are usually the kind of core place for all that data. So I'll enter an expiry date and you'll immediately notice that something comes up to say the shelf life that I've input isn't 18th of March, which is the date that it was expecting. So this is that shelf life requirement section of Clever Quality that's kicking in now. You'll see it isn't a hard stop. I can just continue with that, but it is there to notify users both on receipts and on shipments where I'm entering expiry dates that don't meet the set criteria that I've specified. We also do have, if you're using things like directed pick and put aways, you can actually utilise the shelf life there. So when it's assigning out an automatic kind of lot number, it can actually also take the shelf life into consideration there as well. So it's a little bit more clever. So I'm just going to put in some tracking for both of those items. I'll give this one a nicer date and I'll just continue with that post. So what this is now going to do, you'll notice that most of this process is just pretty much standard Business Central. It's not impacting a user at this point in time. It's not preventing anything or stopping anything. But it has immediately now posted a quality audit in the background. So it's got that automation kicking in. So on my role center, you'll see that I've got a couple of places here I can check for quality orders. So I've got my quality orders, I have my team's quality orders, and I have just open quality orders. So dependent on where they're allocated, they may differ in quantities. So I hope that also just gives you an idea that actually we can assign out quality checks. So potentially your goods in department could be the people responsible for doing purchase receipt checks, for example, but then your warehouse manager, for example, may be the one that's doing your production checks. So you can actually assign them out automatically and they end up in their role centers. So I'm just going to open up this quality order that's just been created. And if I click into that, you'll notice that it's for some dimension checks. And you'll also notice that it is connected to that initial source document. So you'll see it's got the purchase receipt on there. It's got the source document number on there. And I can also actually just go back to that source document directly from here and view that data if I need to as well. So it does help with that visibility and not having to click into lots of different screens and closing things down to view that information. You'll see this is against a specific item and I've got the quantity there and the sample quantity is the full amount. This is all just based around my setup. So although I received 2 items in, I only want to do a check on 1. So again, just highlighting that kind of flexibility and how you can define exactly how your quality orders are generated. And if I just pan down a little bit further here, you'll notice that I also have some checks in place. So the checks that I want to perform at this point in time against a purchase receipt are things like height, length, and width checks. Again, these are completely customizable. These are just the ones I have. But I want to report or put some results in place for this specific lot number against those 3 dimensions, and I'm measuring them all in centimetres. What you can do at this point in time as well is, if this description doesn't highlight enough information, then you can actually input and set up some instructions or even a picture against some of the data. And it actually just gives the user that's actually then putting those results in a little bit more information about what they're supposed to be checking and what they're looking out for. So I can enter results in this screen here. Again, I'm just entering one result per check, but again, that can be something that's completely tailored. But you'll notice that as soon as I input a result value in there, it's immediately populating that with the user, the date, and the time, and that will get stamped every single time that data is populated. We've also got the ability to do things like comments, so I can insert comments here. All these comments are transferred when I post this as well, so I don't ever lose that data. And you can see it's also, I can kind of format it and put it into any sort of different format that I like. We do also have a couple of features just in terms of utilising one of our other apps, document links, but we can do things like uploading a document or even taking a picture of the goods, of the issue, whatever's occurred, and actually attaching it directly to the result as well. So if I just click off there, I'm just going to quickly populate some results for all of my checks here. And you'll see as I'm actually doing it, that data on each line is turning green. And that's because the information that I'm putting as my results for those checks is passing. It's actually the data that I was expecting those checks to have in order for them to pass. So you'll see that my overall result there now is pass. So in this instance, I'm actually just going to post this quality order, and therefore I'll have a posted quality order in the background for that lot number, which is now marked as a pass in the background. So that's just one example of the kind of checks that we can do. Another example of where we can actually put checks in place would be things like production orders. So I have one here. I'm just going to go into the production journal. And we have a couple of options here in setup as to how we can actually do checks. So in this example, I'm just going to post, I'm going to consume everything and post my output completely. So if I just quickly check my lots, I'm going to use the lots that I've just brought in. And I'm just going to do it for both of those lines. But what you can actually do is we can also do what we're classing as in-process productions. So if you have, if you want to actually post some output or part output, and it's against maybe different things like machine centers or work centers, we can actually get quality orders to raise midpoint, kind of mid-process. So actually, if you're moving to a different machine center and you want to do a check at that point in time before you post everything completely, we can set that up as well. So it's quite a nice other option that we can do. If I just assign a new lot number here for this item for my output, and I'm just going to quickly post this here as well. So I appreciate it's a nice kind of simplified version, but it does highlight the fact that we can do checks on both the completed output and also the in-process ones too. So going back to my role center for a second, you'll also now notice that I've got another quality order. So again, I've got this concept of that automated process running in the background. And now you'll see that I've got some production visual checks. So I can set up different checks to do at different points in time, dependent on what transaction I'm actually posting in Business Central. So it really just helps to take that whole process a lot more efficient. It takes out the thought process for users as to what checks do I need to do at what points in time. And it's just there immediately on their role center for them to know. So again, similarly to my last one, it's connected to that original source document. I can obviously view that release production order again if I wanted to. But you'll now see that this is for a different item. It's for my my production item. My quantities and my sample quantities are different. But most importantly, my check is different as well. I've got different checks at different points in time. So in this instance, I've got my new lot number. Is the item packaged correctly? And I can input my results here. So when you're entering results, we have a couple of options. My last one was numeric. So you saw me actually enter numeric data in there, like 5 or 10, for example. This one is actually a lookup field. So I've entered options that the user can select from, and I can now just select the data that I want rather than having to retype it and continue with that. So in this instance, I've actually acknowledged my results as a fail. They haven't met the packaging criteria, therefore my overall result is fail. So what I can do from here, I could simply post this, but actually we have this concept of failure responses in our Clever Quality app, which just gives businesses a lot of choice about what they actually now want to do. So for example, we could do something like a retest full quantity, which can be done where potentially if you're doing let's say a purchase receipt and you bring in 50 quantity, but you're only actually checking 10% of that. If that fails, you can then actually push that out to do a retest of the full amount, which will therefore create a brand new quality order for you for the full quantity. So then you've got the traceability of the original quality order that you did that failed, and then you've got this whole new quality order for the full amount that you can obviously post a result to as well. We can do this concept of non-conformance and actually record the fact that there's been a problem. We can do things like register scrap, so you can actually create a scrap item in your Business Central, and we can actually scrap either the failed quantity or the full quantity from this quality order and effectively write off the item. So item ledger entry will be created from the original item to the new item. We also have this concept of rework, which I know is something that the Microsoft kind of new quality stuff coming in won't include. And actually, this is really useful as a means to allow businesses to change the product. So again, using the instance of having a receipt, you might bring goods in, the packaging or something might be incorrect, but actually as a business, they can push that through a production order or a assembly order and fix that product. So fundamentally, they'll rework the item. When they post that process, then a new quality order is then generated with effectively that fixed product. So again, not only do they have that initial failed quality order, but they then have that new one that records this rework that they've done. We can also do purchase returns, which just immediately create a purchase return document when you're doing purchase receipts and populate that purchase return with all of the item data as well. Or also we can do things like transfers, which again I know is something that is unfortunately lacking in the software that Microsoft are going to be including. So this is a really useful tool where you may potentially have a quarantine location. So actually you can create a transfer order and move the goods from where you've got them into that quarantine location and obviously then handle that at a different point in time. And you'll notice that I can do all of those for the failed quantity or the full quantity as well. So what I actually want to do here is I want to create a non-conformance. I want to record the fact that there's actually been a problem here that I need to address. So I'm going to create a non-conformance. A lot of Clever Quality includes these really helpful wizards just to actually run through that process with you. So if I just quickly put in here something like a packaging problem, you'll put in a nice description. And I can now just specify what has occurred using kind of categories and codes really. So I can just say there's been a production related issue, there's been a damage, and I've got some damaged goods. And obviously all of these are completely tailored per business. These are just my options. Because I'm doing it directly from this quality order, it knows that it's in relation to a production order and it's brought that detail across already. And I can also copy the line data from that production order directly to this non-conformance report to save me having to manually populate all that. So you'll see it actually brings across all of that data for me here. I could also be super specific and say whether this relates to a user issue or a location issue, a machine center problem, for example. Got a whole host of different options that I could select there, what this is connected to. But another nice thing is that you'll also notice it's connected to that quality order and it will also retain that data. So again, if you're looking at something like kind of auditing or traceability, we can always track that information all the way through and actually see where it's been connected. So we know that we did the non-conformance through this quality order. We can do things like corrective documents, so I can actually create a credit memo directly from this non-conformance if I wish, or I can even link it to a credit memo that I've already generated. So you'll see it's brought across the lines that was on my original production order with the correct quantities. And if I wanted to do a credit memo, I could just enter the corrective amount in here. But fundamentally, the purpose of the non-conformance is to identify what's occurred and what are we doing as a business to rectify that. So you'll see there's three kind of boxes here that I can input text. You'll identify what the root cause analysis is, so what initially occurred. And you'll kind of just notice that I can input any data in here and obviously format it in a nice way too. What am I doing now to fix that? So what's the short-term resolution that I'm putting in place? And then also, what am I going to do long-term as a business to prevent that from occurring again? So as I say, a really great tool to actually prevent problems from reoccurring. However, just having kind of notes against these non-conformances is one thing, but actually we want to enforce these. We want to ensure that the preventative action that we're putting in is actually going to be done. So what we can do is we can change the status to in progress, so we know we're working on this non-conformance. And we can actually utilise the standard Business Central tasks in the background to create tasks that I have to complete. So for example, if I want to complete this non-conformance, I have to advise the customers of the problems and also potentially send a quality order to the customer before I can do anything. Because these are tasks that have to be done and have to be completed for me to move on with this non-conformance, it actually just means that you kind of as a business can ensure that those things get done. So it ensures that those things don't reoccur. So those tasks are assigned to me as a user. So I can go back to my role center where everything is stored. I can see those tasks. I can click into them and see if there's any kind of resolution dates or if there's more description in there against them. And then I can also just simply mark them as completed. So once those tasks are complete, I can just go back to that non-conformance. And then you'll notice that my tasks have now changed colour, and I can quite simply change the progress and resolve that non-conformance as well. So it really does just highlight that I can put that preventative action in place. I can make sure that my users are doing those actions to ensure those problems don't ever reoccur. And then I can actually close that non-conformance down. We do have resolved non-conformances that we can report on, but fundamentally that data is then always captured. So just quickly, I'm going to go back to that quality order. I've done the non-conformance against it. Unfortunately, it is still a fail, but I'm just going to post it as a fail. It is what it is. So if we come out of that, you'll now see it's disappeared. So they were two examples of how I can actually automatically do quality orders. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we can also do equipment testing as well, not just necessarily against items. So we can do these one of two ways. I could go to something like a machine center, for example, and I can actually do a quality order here. So if I wanted to do an inspection against this machine center and just quickly pop in a description, I can confirm what checks I want to do at that point in time. So I want to do some metal checks, and it will quite literally just create me a brand new quality order with the correct checks in place there. So this is a really nice way of manually being able to set up equipment testing, for example, but equally we can automatically generate these and have them using job queues in the background. So if you have users that need to do, let's say, hourly metal detection checks, or every Friday evening they need to do some check to clean out some kind of equipment, they can obviously put that in place as well and get quality orders generated for them automatically. That's just a really nice way of handling that. And again, it's exactly the same the way they work. Is there any metal detected? No. I can enter results and I can quite literally just post the data there to capture that. So once we have all this data and we're posting all these quality orders, that information isn't then lost. So we can have a look at posted quality orders. I can actually go back into them and check the data. I can have a look at the results that I entered. I could even potentially have a look at all the comments that the users actually made against those if I want to see if any additional information was stored. But what I can also do is I can print a certificate. So if you've got customers that need to send proof that checks were done, for example, I could have a look at the certificate that's generated. I can see on here that this was some visual checks, packaging wasn't done. I enter the result of no, therefore that's a fail. So it's just a really nice means of being able to send that off to people just to clarify that those checks have been done. And we do also have a means of being able to add user signatures to these as well, if that's a useful tool for you. It's an easy setup to include. So we have the quality certificates in there as well. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned how traceability is really important to us and ensuring that we can easily access the data, ensuring that we've always got that capture of what happened. So we can use just the standard item tracing in Business Central to capture that. So you'll notice if I just open the item tracing screen, I can search by lot number and you'll see that it is now recording that quality order result against the quality order number. So if you ever need to go back, if there's ever a claim or products that need to be recalled, for example, you've always got that data available in the item tracing screen. So there's a few other things that we do capture that are really useful. So things like the lot number information list. We have a few things in here that's quite relevant. So you'll see here, if I just pan across, that we are storing lot statuses against all of the lot numbers now, and also serial numbers if your businesses are using those. So fundamentally, in my setup, I've got failed lots are ones that obviously I failed quality orders. Past ones are where I've got past quality orders, but I've also got this concept of in process result as well. And these are really important just from a kind of setup perspective, because we can actually set up blocking functionality on these. So for example, where I have quality orders that fail, I can completely block the lots, I can block the serial number, but I can allow reclassification journals, for example. Where I have quality orders and lot numbers that therefore pass, I don't have any blocking features on there. But as businesses, you could do things like if you've got in process quality orders and they haven't yet been posted, you may then want to actually block them for potentially any other purchase movements or any other sales movements as well. So it just helps businesses to really tailor how they want to handle their quality processes and what restrictions they want to put in place. Something else that we do have is this concept of sublots. So effectively, if you have a lot number and let's say you've got one that's failed, if you want to actually take out some of the quantity for that and pass that, so you can actually, so you're not limited with just having a lump of failed stock, you can create a sublot. And it really just gives you the means of, just quickly open one up here, checking what current lot number you have, specify what quantity you want to pull out of that existing lot number. You've got the means of changing the expiry date if you want to there, populating a reason code for why you're providing a sublot or creating a sublot. And you can also move that as well. So you can place that in a different location, zone, or bin code. But what you'll notice when you do that, so I've got one here, is my original lot number is stamped. My quantity or my remaining inventory is changed and goes into that new lot number that I created. You'll notice that the new lot number retains the original lot reference, but then just puts a hyphen with a number at the end, which is a bit of easier to find. But again, traceability is really important with quality. So we also maintain that original lot number against that sublot, as well as actually how many sublots have been created from the original. And we can actually drill down into that and see a list if there's a long list there as well. So again, it just gives the user the ability to find that data really easily, and it's all in one place. And I guess the last thing just in terms of this part of the demo is just what we can then do with that information once it's in Business Central, because it's all well and good recording results, but equally we want to see the data, we want to be able to access it and potentially do processes with that data. So for example, I could go to my items list, I could also have a look at customers, vendors and stock keeping units too, and actually check some statistics against what's physically been posted from a quality perspective. So I can change the period I want to view data by. I could scroll up and down for where I've posted quality orders. And you'll see I can do things like how many posted quality orders was posted in that period, what's the quantity that was tested, what's the quantity that passed or failed. And I can see things like pass percentage rates, what I reworked and what I scrapped. So you don't have to actually then individually go into each different quality order you've posted. You've just got a really nice tool of being able to find that data in one place. And also you'll notice that these are drill downs. So I can also just open those lists and then click into the quality orders if I wanted to. What else is really nice about this though is that I can also do that for the checks. So not necessarily just the physical items that I've done posted quality orders for, but actually the checks that that business has done as well. So in this instance, I've only done packaging checks against the item, but it will tell me how many checks I've done, how many have failed. And in this instance, I've actually got a 0 pass rate, which as businesses can really use these tools to identify issues. So if there's a constant failure rate here, why is it not passing? Is it an issue with the check itself? Is it something I need to change? Is it something the vendor needs to do about their packaging? So it just gives the customers the ability to actually assess that data and actually put things in place to potentially rectify them going forwards. So if I just kind of pin back to this just for a quick second, is Clever Quality customizable? And fundamentally, can all users actually use it? So in terms of customizable, absolutely. It's customizable by quite a few different ways, to be perfectly honest. So not only do you have access to the source code, so generally we do usually say that we try and make all of our apps 90 to 95% workable immediately. There's always going to be that small percentage that needs to have something extra, or a certain business has their own completely different way of handling a certain process. So you have the access to the source code, but we do also add to these apps on a really regular basis. So literally every single month we decide what new features we are looking to include in the next release. And obviously we work through those on a really quick turnaround as well. So that's just another way that we do ensure that it's constantly customized, but also reworked and improved on. But even just in the actual app itself, there's a lot of information that businesses can manipulate and add themselves. So for example, the checks that I did, these are just a long list of different checks that I have set up. These are all completely customizable. These are free type. You can enter different checks that you want to perform, what unit of measures the businesses actually want to do those, and how they want that data to be entered when they're doing results. Do they just want to put in some numeric data, or do they actually want to pick from yeses or nos or options in there? And as I say, with ones that I've kind of done before, I could also put in some kind of instructions and then just make sure that all of that data is there automatically to transfer through to quality orders at a later point in time. So all of that information is completely customizable and flexible. Once you've then got your checks in place, you basically just want to put them into a test. And again, businesses can have as many different tests running as they want to. And the test is really just an accumulation of different checks that they want to perform at different points in time in their business process. So I've got a selection of different checks that I may want to do. I identify how many results per check I actually want to perform. So it could be just one result. It could be a result for the amount that I'm actually testing. So if I'm testing 10, I want to input 10 results. It can be what result I want ideally to receive in order for it to pass. But also we can do things like lower and upper limits as well. So if something falls between 3 and 7 degrees, for example, that can quantify as a pass, and anything that sits outside of those is an automatic fail. And we can also just define what tracking and therefore what blocking functionality we do at that point as well. So again, all of that is completely customizable by users. So we have the checks. We define what different checks we want to do at one point in time, and we can group them together. And then the best bit is just to identify how are we going to make that automatic? How can we get Business Central to actually create these automatically for me so I don't have to think about them? So we can set up an automation rule to say for these different transaction types, and you'll notice we can do them for quite a lot of different transaction points in Business Central. So things like I mentioned before, the production output, the in-process production ones where I'm not necessarily outputting everything at one point in time, assembly outputs, transfer receipts. I've also got the timed ones, which I'm using for things like equipment testing, and also these kind of receipt and shipment ones where I'm doing non-item checks, so like the vehicle checks or the driver checks. I specify at what point in time I want to have Business Central create a quality order for me. You can then be really specific about filters. So depending on what option you pick, you may want to say, when I do an in-process production order, I want to do a check from this machine center for these items specifically. So you can really narrow that down. Confirm which checks you want to do based on the test. Confirm how you want that quality order to even be generated. So do you want a quality order per every item on that document? Or do you want a quality order for every lot or serial number on that document? So again, really, really customizable. And then how do we want to actually test that? Are we testing the full quantity of goods? Do I want to do a sample percentage? What's the sample percentage? And then finally, what's the occurrence? How often do I actually want Business Central to create these quality orders? Is it every time? Is it every third? Or do I even want to do maybe first 5, for example? So where businesses maybe are using new vendors really frequently, they might want to do the first 5 purchase receipts, for example, and then Business Central will just know that when it comes to the 6th receipt, they don't need to do a quality order, and it will just automatically not need to create one. So again, there's a lot of different flexibility in the setup there as well that's really easy to customize. The shelf life requirements that I mentioned earlier that we used on the receipts is also really easy to put together. It's one table, so you don't have to worry about managing it on the item cards or the customer card or the vendor card. We can quite simply say I've got purchase rules. I can do it for purchases in general. I can do it against purchases and vendor specific, or I can even say it's vendor and item specific dates as well. And quite simply just set what the minimum shelf life requirement is for those different rules, and Business Central then knows to be checking them on receipts and on shipments automatically. And then finally, I haven't necessarily run through an example, but I mentioned that we have this vendor compliance functionality in here, which is quite different to what I notice other people using in terms of quality products. So here is just a tool to confirm what accreditations or certificates businesses are expecting their vendors to have. So if their vendors need to be BRC accredited or ISO or MSC or whatever different accreditations they have, they can store them in Business Central. They can actually connect the certificate here as well, so they can actually store that certificate against the entry. And then they can just retain things like requested date for the certificate. Does the certificate have an issued date or a reference on there? And then finally, what is the actual expiry date for that certificate? So then Business Central can then do checks every single time a purchase order is about to be released, check it against the expected receipt date, and actually look to ensure that there is date left on the certificate. So where it's expired, that purchase order can't physically be released until a new certificate's put in with a longer expiry date. But I think what's really nice about that one as well is that, again, from the role centre, we have the visibility of not just what's expired already, which obviously gives the user a prompt to chase that up, but also documents that are about to expire within the month. So again, it's just that constant to do, what's my priorities, what can I do, and what needs to be done relatively quickly. And the final thing I really want to mention just in terms of customizations is about teams. So I mentioned earlier that we can assign quality orders to different teams, so teams and also team members. And that does actually kind of help in terms of who's got visibility or who can actually edit and do things like quality procedures. So everyone has access to look at things like your non-conformances and your quality orders and posted quality orders and all your vendor compliance. But fundamentally, if you want people to be editing quality orders, to be inputting results and to be posting quality orders, then you do need to be set up as a team member. but the team members are obviously really handy to then be able to actually allocate what checks are done at what specific points in time. So yes, super flexible, super flexible there. So I've actually finished that a little bit quicker than anticipated, to be honest. Is there any kind of questions or anything that you'd like to ask, just in terms of anything I haven't necessarily covered, or anything that I have covered that you'd like more information on?
No, that was really good. Thank you. It's quite informative. A lot of details to it. Thank you.
It's a difficult one because Clever Quality is a big app, to be honest. It's got a lot in
Yes.
there. But it's really just useful to at least see a couple of examples about how it can just automate that process,
Yeah.
but also just knowing at what places it can actually do those automations.
Yeah.
But you're not limited to that. You know, if you've got businesses that want to do ad hoc checks, they can do them from the lot number information list. You can do the equipment testing there as well.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's probably one of our biggest apps. There's quite a lot, as I'm sure Gabby will probably tell you. There's a lot on there to be added in for the future. It's one that's going to be added to regularly.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, is there kind of anything that you see in there that you think is missing potentially from things that you know people use? Or
No, I mean, this was very comprehensive, and from what people use, I mean, a lot of our customers still use obviously spreadsheets for these kind of things.
yeah,
So it covered a lot. I think it would be more for like a testing it with them and then see if there is anything missing. But it seems to cover already quite a bit, so I'll be
okay,
surprised if there is. But yeah,
that's good.
no, at the moment I cannot think of anything. But yeah, it does cover a lot. It really does. Yeah.
Good. I think generally what we kind of say is, if it's something that you want to test, obviously test the most kind of basic things, test the most completely difficult processes that people tend to do.
Yeah.
Because I know some industries have crazy checks that they want to try and perform it, you know, make it really complicated. And generally, if both can be done, then anything in between can generally be completely workable.
Okay.
But yeah, if you think of anything else, you know, by all means, you can message me and double check anything, or if anything crops up where you think, I don't think it quite covers that, then
Yeah,
I'd appreciate at least knowing that, because obviously
of
if there's
course.
things that people are using that we haven't catered for, it'd be interesting
Yeah,
to take those into account. So
no, definitely. Thank you very much.
amazing, you're welcome. I'll leave it there then, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's it. Thank
I
you.
think,
Have a good day.
thank you. I think Lauren's going to make this available for you as well. So if you do need to refer back to it, then you should be able
Okay,
to access it.
brilliant. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.